Hey there, it's Joel Blake again. I tried to make a Keek last night, but for some odd reason on my iPad, the volume or the microphone isn't working right. I mean, it was working last summer. I don't know what happened to it afterwards. Hold on, I thought I had something on my lip, but I don't. But anyway, I'm gonna cut to the chase. I just wanted to make this video to congratulate the cast and crew of Kinky Boots for winning this year's Tony Award for Best Musical, and to congratulate all the winners. Let's see. I have the nominees in front of me, so I'm gonna see if I can remember who won what. The award, if you didn't see my video with the nominations, I'll just say the list of the nominees again and tell you the winner with it. The nominees for Best Orchestrations were Chris Nightingale for Matilda the Musical, Stephen Oriamis for Kinky Boots, Ethan Pop and Brian Crook for Motown the Musical, and Danny Trube for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. And the Tony went to Stephen Oriamis for Kinky Boots. That's what my PS2 in the background, just so you know. Anyway, the nominees for Best Choreography were Andy Blankenbuehler for Bring It On the Musical, Peter Darling for Matilda the Musical, Jerry Mitchell for Kinky Boots, and Chet Walker for Pippin. And the Tony for Best Choreography went to Jerry Mitchell for Kinky Boots. The award for Best Direction of a Musical, the nominees were Scott Ellis for The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Jerry Mitchell for Kinky Boots, Diane Paulus for Pippin, and Matthew Warchus for Matilda the Musical. And the Tony went to Diane Paulus for Pippin. The nominees for Best Direction of a Play were Pam McKinnon for Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Nicholas Martin for Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, Bartlett Sher for Golden Boy, and George C. Wolfe for Lucky Guy. And the Tony went to Pam McKinnon for Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The nominees for Best Sound Design of a Musical were Jonathan Deans and Garth Helm for Pippin, Peter Hylansky for Motown the Musical, John Shivers for Kinky Boots, and Nevin Steinberg for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. And the Tony went to John Shivers for Kinky Boots. The nominees for Best Sound Design of a Play were John Gramada for The Trip to Bountiful, Mel Mercier for The Testament of Mary, Leon Rothenberg for The Nance, and Peter John Still and Mark Salzberg for Golden Boy. And the Tony went to Leon Rothenberg for The Nance. The nominees for Best Line Design of a Musical went to, the nominees were Kenneth Posner for Kinky Boots, Kenneth Posner for Pippin, Kenneth Posner for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, and Hugh Vanstone for Matilda the Musical. And the Tony went to Hugh Van Stone for Matilda the Musical. And the nominees for Best Line Design of a Play, I'll have to get my pen, but anyway, the nominees are Jules Fisher and Peggy Eisenhower for Lucky Guy, Donald Holder for Golden Boy, Jennifer Tipton for The Testament of Mary, and Jaffe Weideman for The Nance. And the American Theater Wing's Tony Award went to Peggy Eisenhower and Jules Fisher for Lucky Guy. The nominees for Best Costume Design of a Musical are Greg Barnes for Kinky Boots, Rob Howell for Matilda the Musical, Dominique Lemieux for Pippin, and William Ivey Long for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. And the Tony went to William Ivey Long for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. The nominees for Best Costume Design of a Play were Sutra Gilmore for Cyrano de Bergerac, Anne Roth for The Nance, Albert Wolski for The Heiress, and Catherine Zuber for Golden Boy. And the Tony went to Anne Roth for The Nance. The nominees for Best Design of a Musical were Rob Howell for Matilda the Musical, Anna Luizos for The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Scott Pask for Pippin, and David Rockwell for Kinky Boots. And the Tony went to Rob Howell for Matilda the Musical. The nominees for Best Design of a Play were John Lee Beatty for The Nance, Santo Loquasto for The Assembled Parties, David Rockwell for Lucky Guy, and Michael Yergin for Golden Boy. And the Tony went to John Lee Beatty for The Nance. The nominees for Best Featured Actress in a Musical were Annalee Ashford for Kinky Boots, Victoria Clark for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, Andrea Martin for Pippin, Keala Settle for Hands on a Hard Body, and Lauren Ward for Matilda the Musical. And the Tony went to Andrea Martin for Pippin. The nominees for Best Featured Actor in a Musical were Charles Brown for Motown the Musical, Keith Carradine for Hands on a Hard Body, Will Chase for The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Gabriel Ebert for Matilda the Musical, and Terrence Mann for Pippin. And the Tony went to Gabriel Ebert for Matilda the Musical. The nominees for Best Featured Actress in a Play were Carrie Coon for Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Shalita Grant for Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, Judith Ivey for The Heiress, Judith Light for The Assembled Parties, and Condola Rashad for The Trip to Bountiful. And the Tony went to Judith Light, winning her second consecutive Tony for the assembled parties. She won last year for Best Featured Actress in a Play for Other Desert Cities. Best Featured Actor in a Play, the nominees were Danny Burstein for Golden Boy, Richard Kind for The Big Knife, Billy Magnuson for Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, Tony Shalhoub for Golden Boy, and Courtney B. Vance for Lucky Guy. And the Tony went to Courtney B. Vance for Lucky Guy. The nominees for Best Leading Actress in a Musical were Stephanie J. Block for Mystery of Edwin Drood, Carolee Carmello for Scandalous, Felicia LaCaye for Motown the Musical, Patina Miller for Pippin, and Laura Osnes for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. And the winner was Patina Miller for Pippin. This is her first Tony for her role as the leading player in Pippin. In the last Broadway production of Pippin, Ben Vereen, a guy, won the Tony for Best Leading Actor in a Musical in 1972 or 73 for his role as the leading player in Pippin. I'm not trying to sound sexist, but I mean, it's great. I am very, very, very happy that she won. Being from the South myself. And anyway, I just didn't realize that a woman could do the role of the leading player just as well as a guy, but she proved me wrong, and I'm happy for Patina Miller. Now to continue. The nominees for Best Leading Actor in a Musical were Bertie Carvel for Matilda the Musical, Santino Fontana for Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, Rob McClure for Chaplin, Billy Porter for Kinky Boots, and Stark Sands for Kinky Boots. And the Tony went to Billy Porter for Kinky Boots. The nominees for Best Leading Actress in a Play were Laurie Metcalf for The Other Plays, Amy Morton for Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Christine Nielsen for Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, Holland Taylor for Anne, and Cicely Tyson for The Trip to Bountiful. And the Tony went to Cicely Tyson for The Trip to Bountiful. The nominees for Best Leading Actor in a Play, the nominees were Tom Hanks for Lucky Guy, Nathan Lane for The Nance, Tracy Letts, Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, David Hyde Pierce for Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, and Tom Sturridge for Orphans. And the Tony went to Tracy Letts for Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The nominees for Best Score were A Christmas Story, the Musical, music and lyrics by Benji Pasek and Justin Paul. Hands on a Hard Body, music by Trey Anastasio and Amanda Green, lyrics by Amanda Green. Kinky Boots, music and lyrics by Cyndi Lauper. And Matilda the Musical, music and lyrics by Tim Minchin. And the Tony went to Kinky Boots, music and lyrics by Cyndi Lauper. Best Book of a Musical, the nominees were A Christmas Story the Musical, book by Joseph Robinette, Harvey Fierstein for Kinky Boots. Matilda the Musical, book by Dennis Kelly. And Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, book by Douglas Carter Beane. And the Tony went to Dennis Kelly for Matilda the Musical. The nominees for Best Revival of a Play were Golden Boy, Orphans, The Trip to Bountiful, and Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And the Tony went to Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The nominees for Best Revival of a Musical were Annie, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Pippin, and Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. And the Tony went to Pippin. The nominees for Best Play were The Assembled Parties by Richard Greenberg, Lucky Guy by Nora Ephron, The Testament of Mary by Colm Tóibín, and Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike. And the Tony went to Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike. And lastly, the nominees for Best Musical were Bring It On the Musical, A Christmas Story the Musical, Kinky Boots, and Matilda the Musical. And the Tony Award went to, as I said earlier in the video, Kinky Boots. And again, congratulations to all the winners. And nominees. It was a great show. I can't wait to see what next season is going to bring on Broadway. I really can't wait.